AI monetization has crashed for some. Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. So it's been an ongoing theme in videos we've put up in the past. We have predicted what to look for, the signs, the evidence, the hints that a company is starting to lose it in the AI war. They're starting to show signs of not being able to provide what they used to provide. When they start getting weak, they start rolling up the sidewalks. So when the lack of profit causes AI providers to roll up the sidewalks, this is the first casualty, probably the first. There's probably going to be other ones, but this is the first casualty. The artificial intelligence service previously offered by X.com is now behind a high friction login process. Didn't used to be. When we started covering this, we said that look for these kinds of signs. When companies start pulling back their own products, they're in trouble. So Grok.com used to allow access to anyone, like a search engine, logged in or not. You can go to any search engine. You don't have to create an account. You don't have to log in. You just type in a search. You're a user, one of hundreds of millions that the search engine can sell to advertisers, right? So the search engine monetizes the eyeballs using the search engine. The users search for something on the search engine. Advertisers advertise for that that search. That's a high intent search, right? It's valuable. So Grok used to allow that same sort of access, okay? But they have now become account gated. You have to have an account, and quota limited. Even after you have an account, they will limit you to how much you can use their artificial intelligence. No more casual users are allowed. Only a few prompts are allowed if you create an account, then you have to start paying. So this is and I'll show you a chart that they are the weakest of the providers out there right now. So they're in trouble. So despite the, the charisma, I guess you'd say it, or the claims, a better way to say it is the claims made by the people running this company, they're starting to show signs of weakness and quitting. They're quitting because the other search engines don't do this. They're still offering normal search engine service. They know that the number of eyeballs they get, they can sell that to advertisers. And the advertisers know that is intentional sort of looking for a product or a solution, like a local service or some product. Advertisers will pay for those eyeballs. So for some reason, X.com is quitting this, and it's probably because they're running out of money. So it's what I would call a soft paywall. Are they weak or are they out of money? They're probably both. They're probably out of money and they're weak because they're not making any money on their AI. They're not making any money on rocket launches. They're making money on Starlink, but so they're in trouble and they're starting to roll up the sidewalks. So the day might come when the X.com site refuses everyone unless they pay. When you start putting up soft paywalls and high friction login process, you are blowing it because the world of users, a lot of people are just not going to bother with you. There are too many alternatives. For example, where can you get AI right now without even needing to create an account? Can you do that? Yes, you can. There are a lot of choices, okay? X.com, Grok is not one of them. So this is sort of the first sign of trouble with one of the larger LLM companies that is profitless. They do not have legacy products. Unlike Microsoft, which has a legacy product line stretching back decades, X.com does not. They're very sensitive to not making money. They're not making money, so they're starting to create friction for their users. They don't want people using their AI because they can't afford it. They don't have the money. And we noted in prior videos that evidence of elimination of an LLM access will show itself when they start limiting access to their AI. They're burning billions of dollars on AI hardware, chips, infrastructure, and so on. And like I said, they have no legacy products to support all that spending. They're losing the AI race fast. They're starting to cut off their own users. So this was a sign to look for. There are only going to be one or two large LLM providers left standing. X.com, Grok, is not going to be one of them. It's not clear where they go from here. They might, hopefully they'll figure out some way to start competing again, but right now they're not competing. They're like, in a Formula One race, you see certain cars pull off the grid because they really can't afford to be there. They can't afford to keep their car in the race. So imagine if search engines like Google or DuckDuckGo or Bing or Dogpile started requiring everyone to have an account. said we're not going to let you search unless you create an account. All the advertisers would say you're putting up too much friction for users. We're seeing click-throughs drop significantly. We're not seeing the users click on our ads, so we're not going to pay you, search engine. We're not going to pay you for advertising as much because you are putting up a lot of friction for your users. Search engines are not going to do that. Google, Bing, Dogpile, DuckDuckGo, the rest of the search engines are still offering free access to users because the search engines sell those users' eyeballs to advertisers. That's where they're making their money. You don't need an account to use Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, Dogpile, and so on. So the long-term view. So the elimination of AI companies like X.AI, it's going to intensify because they haven't figured out how to make AI profitable, okay? Fewer venture capitalists are going to be willing to give money to them. They have not solved the profitability problem. They're losing money. The bond market, they have burned through the bond market as a source of funding. Venture capitalists, no. Bond market, not anymore. The bonds that SpaceX sold started losing value pretty quickly. They're underwater. They're in trouble. So the sources of money for AI companies are shrinking. They have not solved the problem of how to become profitable. If you have legacy product lines like Google has, like Microsoft has, and so on, different story. You have other places where you can get capital. You don't need to go to the bond market or venture capitalists. Private credit, private equity could have been a source of funding in the past, but not anymore because that industry is in deep trouble. That industry is in deep trouble. So these funding sources, selling stock on the exchange, private credit, the bond market, no. So we've heard that Anthropic is considering going public. Strongly recommend you avoid Anthropic. Strongly recommend you avoid, unless you can buy the shares before they go public, right? We said the same thing with SpaceX. If you're a retail investor, it's not a good time to be buying that stock. Same with Anthropic if they go public. All right. So if you go through this exercise right now, compare a regular search to using AI through Grok. Open a new browser window and don't log into anything. And do a search on something. Any search engine, well, almost any search engine, will give you a search result and you won't have to log in. Bing, Google.com, Dogpile, DuckDuckGo, and so on. No login, no account needed. And carefully note, many of the search engines offer AI results, right? You don't need an account. You can do a search. You can get AI results. Not from XAI Grok anymore. XAI is fading. They are an early quitter. They have quit or in the process of quitting this game. They're out of money. They are in trouble. The first sign of failing is cutting off access to your product line. For example, if you go to X.AI right now, X.com. If you go to X.com, the old Twitter, what used to be Twitter, for some users, even this has stopped working. Continue with Google will not let you log into X.com. I saw that in some of the research we did for this is failing to allow login for many X.com users. So again, friction. Imagine Google requiring a sign up first or a paywall to use it. They wouldn't do that. Google created a product line that is so strong they can sell the eyeballs of their users to advertisers, and they are highly profitable. We know that SpaceX bonds have crashed in value, so that source of funding is hosed. They're not going to be able to raise money from the bond market. Berkshire Hathaway has chosen a winner to invest in. This is the number one most likely winner of the AI wars, X.com, and I'll show you a chart as we go through this. X.com is they're quitting. They're sort of quitting the game. So how is X.com going to evolve, the old Twitter? How are they going to evolve with this new withdrawal from giving access to users? And so we sort of thought about this. Okay, what about the walled garden technique that Apple has used, right? So we thought to ourselves, okay, so X is putting up all this friction to use their regular site, the X.AI, and to use the X.com, the old Twitter. They're putting up friction to use the Twitter side of their business, and they're putting up friction to use Grok.com. Maybe they're trying to create a pay-only walled garden like Apple did. So when you're losing billions of dollars on AI chips and hardware, it's sort of a nice dream to be able to create a walled garden. But Apple did not create a walled garden by eliminating customers, by putting up a lot of friction. They had products. They had outstanding products, right? That company's got a history of coming out with fantastically good products. They created a walled garden around their product line, not by putting up friction for people to use, their company's products. So if you answer this question, what X.com device do you buy on a regular basis? There aren't any. There's no walled garden to create. So we looked at this. Is X.com cutting off access or creating high friction because they're trying to create a walled garden? They want everybody to pay. It's not going to work. The only path for monetization for them is to sell eyeballs. They do not have any products. They're not going to be able to create. They're not going to be able to create a walled garden. X.com and Grok do not have any consumer devices that would be a walled garden ecosystem, right? So here's the chart. Social media platform users. Twitter's all the way at the lowest side of this. So they're in trouble. Facebook is doing well, even though they're getting sued. Right now they're being sued. YouTube, Instagram, WhatsApp, TikTok is blowing Twitter away. So, the contrast between what the leadership of that company says and what they're actually doing, cutting off access with high friction, is kind of amazing. It's pretty disappointing. So the executives at X are creating a walled garden by making it hard to use their products. That's a business error. That's a mistake. They have failed to identify how, if that's what they're trying to do, how Apple was able to do it. Apple had great products that everybody was envious of and still is. So consider the online ad revenue situation. Search engines don't require you to create an account. They give answers. They don't restrict users. They have AI hooked up to the search engine. You don't need an account to use it. Therefore, they have a huge base of users for advertisers. They are monetizing the eyeballs of those users. Would Bing, DuckDuckGo, Dogpile, Google, etc. cut off their user base and lose that advertiser revenue? Probably not, right? Probably not. If you navigate to grok.com right now and enter a search or query, you'll get nothing. It's gone. It's over, unfortunately, for that company. So this is they have quit that part of the business. So their AI is going to fade. How many search engines offering AI are doing that? Only X.com. Only X.com. And in some cases, when we were doing research for this, we discovered that continue with Google. If you go to X.com, you can log in several different ways. One of them is continue with Google. And we found a lot of evidence that is no longer working for X.com, that if you have if you previously had continue with Google working, that it has stopped working. So the friction that they're creating, huge mistake. So we predicted at a couple of months ago that the AI monetization would crash. We didn't think these companies were going to be able to solve the unprofitability problem. We didn't think they'd be able to solve it, and they haven't. And so X.com is quitting early. They're one of the earliest quitters. We'll see if others fall to the wayside. Google will end up being the number one provider. They have legacy products. They'll be able to make it. Could Apple have made this work? Maybe. But the free cash flow problem with a lot of these companies is dire. The free cash flow has reached zero or negative. So it would have been a struggle for Apple. And Apple's best mode of operation is what they're already doing: insanely great products, and walled garden around their product lines. They're doing a great job with that. They've been doing a great job with that for a long time. Google has other sources of revenue. X.com is a sort of tragic because, the leadership of that company, they lead you in one direction, but what's really happening is something totally different. They're actually quitting. They're pulling up stakes. They're rolling up the sidewalks. They're leaving early. So if I missed anything, please let me know. Everyone has a perspective on this, and I certainly don't know all the different dimensions of this. So if you do have opinions, please, if you feel like chiming in, you can post questions in the comments. If you do have questions, you can post those in the comments. I can try to answer them. I can't answer everything, unfortunately, but I do try. And I really want to thank everyone for watching. Have a great day.